Today's social system mapping, welcome to today's social system mapping on-ramp session for today, June 8th, 2020. This session is the second in our monthly sequence of 3 sessions. The second Monday of every month. No, I'm sorry, I'm totally confused today. Just want to acknowledge we're plodding forward with business as usual in our sharing of our on-ramp sessions and our teaching people of mapping. And want to acknowledge that that by no means means that we think life is business as usual at the moment in the world, and just want to acknowledge that there's a whole universe of change going on and a whole universe of suffering going on from a whole universe of angles. And we're in Minneapolis, so we've been sort of very close to that in terms of our daily lives for a while, and just want to acknowledge that and take a moment and maybe just take a pause and recognize that while life moves on and we have stuff to do, there's still a lot going on, and this isn't maybe the highest or the most important, but hopefully it's a helpful piece to how we move into the future together. So just to center myself again, because I disrupted my own thinking as I was going to dive through the agenda, I'm just going to, let's just take a moment and just be quiet and acknowledge, and just center ourselves and just take a moment to acknowledge the state of the world at the moment. Okay, thanks for that. And so part of that is to just recognize that what we're doing with our mapping is, I mean, the vision and the hope is that we can use this as a tool to help us understand across differences better and understand how to connect and build alliances and stronger relationships. And so the hope is that this mapping that we do is a tool for a positive transition and outcome. So, okay. Thank you. And so we have 3 3 sessions a month. The second Monday we have an on-ramp, which is this session, which is a fairly introductory level session for people who aren't familiar with social system mapping or sumApp and who just would like to see maps. What is this what kind of, see some examples of what we're talking about. So every second Monday someone shares a map that they've created and talks about the context and how they're using it or their struggles with it or whatever. And today Jim Best is going to share June Holly's Network Weaver Facebook page map. On the third Monday of every month, we have a deeper dive conversation where we dig into some kind of topic relative to social system mapping that requires more focus than we can stuff into an on-ramp session. And then on the fourth Monday of every month, we have a tech talk, which is to introduce features of sumApp that are more technical and less of the social process, and that people generally aren't aware of or that require some demonstrating. So on the 22nd of this month, we will be talking about how to, I bet even Jim doesn't know we can do this, import connections from one project into another project. So if you've got an overlapping network, how to move them. Which is kind of, it's an awkward thing, but it's also cool. So today's agenda, we're gonna have introductions in a minute, we're gonna have breakouts, and then Jim will walk us through his map, and then we'll go to questions and answers. And then for those of you who are new to this, the session is formally designed to be an hour, so we'll stop at the top of the hour formally, but we always, me and if Tim's around, and it doesn't look like he's with us, I can't tell, but and Kara will stick around for an extra half hour. So if you've got just some more stuff you want to dig into, if you've got more questions or you just want to talk about whatever, We'll be around for another half hour. So at the top of the hour, we will say thank you to everybody for coming, and we will say goodbye at the top. And then if you want to stick around, just hang out. And once everybody's jumped off, then we can jump into whatever you want to do. So I'm your host today, Christine Capper. I'm the co-founder of sumApp and Greater Than the Sum. And today I'm the facilitator, the session facilitator. In terms of sumApp jargon or social system mapping jargon, we have a concept of 3 different kinds of hats: a visioning hat, a technical hat, and a sense-making hat, and I tend to wear all 3 of them. Although my partner, my business partner and life partner, Tim Hansen, wears the technical hat way more than I do, but I'm pretty good at it, but I'm not the master. So for our breakout, what I want to do is we're going to break you, actually, Kara, let's break them into groups of 2 because we don't have a whole lot of people. I mean, we don't have a huge group. Wait, I don't know how big a group we have. I have to stop sharing and look at that one.
15.
Okay, 15. 3s. Let's do 3s. Okay. Okay. So we'll break you into groups of 3. We'll give you a minute each. So 2 minutes each. So we'll give you 6 minutes and break. I'm backing up. We'll put them in 2s and do 2 minutes each. And Sonia, if you can just not do the breakouts and stick around and just stay in the room if you want, or we'll say thanks for joining us. It's up to you, but you don't have to participate. Don't feel pressure. Okay, breakouts, name, pronoun, location, what made you show up here today, and then a burning question that you would like to have answered in today's session. Like, just discuss that with each other. You've got, and just get to know each other a little bit. 2 minutes each, so we'll bring you back at 4 minutes, and then we'll ask you to put your burning questions into the chat, and then we'll start the session.
Hopefully everybody's finding their way back.
Well, I think that was, anyway, let's have you, for those of you who were able to talk about what your burning questions are, let's have you, if you don't mind, put them in the chat so we can see what we want to talk about, or what we want to help draw out from Jim. Okay. So we've got a range of stuff, from what's the technical differences between some of the different tools, to meaningful, engaging, a whole meaningful, engaging process, and then COVID tracking and basic stuff. So I will turn it over. Let me just turn it over to Jim Best, who has been working with me and Tim and some other people that I sort of tongue-in-cheek labeled master mappers quite a while ago, and Jim is one of the master mappers. And the master mappers started a project to map June Holly's Facebook page, and Jim has been carrying that torch ever since. And so I'll turn it over to him and say, take it away, Jim. Yeah. Thanks for presenting.
All right. Thanks. Thanks for gathering virtually. I'm on Ohlone ground, indigenous culture here for tens of thousands of years, or not tens, but thousands of years here in the Bay Area. And it's interesting how virtually we're each on ground stewarded by Native Americans and other people for so many years. It's such a privilege that we're here. Yeah, tongue-in-cheek master mappers. Boy, was that ever turned out to be tongue-in-cheek. So it's a learning journey, and I'll show you what we got on this this particular map. It was my idea. I put in the chat this Facebook group. Let me share my screen and get going with this. I think we can do it here. No guarantees that we're going to. The guarantee is I'll shut up after 15 minutes. So no guarantees what we're going to cover here. But as master mappers, we were getting together to think and talk about network mapping experiences and so forth. And one of the big things I wanted to do was to learn technically how to do this work. But the visioning part, about how you bring that out and engage people, super important. And the sense-making piece of it is probably the most important in terms of engaging people in a group to make sense of some visualization of their relationships, of their social capital and their human capital, so that it affects the intentions they have as a group. So that's the framework that we're in right there. This, I propose that we go to this network weaving Facebook group. It's got 2,000 people in it. The people are very interested in how they weave communities together. And June Holly put this together to basically bring all these people together in community, a community of interest. And one of the things you do as a weaver is to use maps to visualize where you're going and what you're doing. So that was the idea, is to build a map amongst these people. So let me show you what this map looks like very quickly. You are seeing all of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But we started out with the sumApp survey to collect the data, and it's typically you're looking at the sumApp survey right now as if you were a participant. And there's typical personal information, professional information, and then we had other information that we wanted to collect. But what about our participation in the Facebook group? What we did, though, when we proposed this idea to the Facebook group, we opened it up to a meeting, and about 30 or 40 people showed up that were interested in mapping. And we said, what do you want this map to be? Because all these maps are participant driven. So we got 30 or 40 people for an hour and a half trying to define what it is, what the purpose is for this Facebook group, and what information would be important to collect, both on a human side, on a personal side, and also on a relational side. So we got 40 people trying to represent 2,000 people. And it was better than nothing, but it was just attracted a certain type of person. And we got a certain kind of focus out of that. We did a couple of those meetings. We refined it. We spent a lot of time over several months bringing people together and doing this. In retrospect, it would have been a lot better to follow Christine's advice right from the beginning, which is just build a quickie map, get it out there, engage people's interest, and build from that. But this is what we did. So we operated very slowly. But one of the things we wanted to do is understand how focused people were on their on networking as part of the work that they did as consultants and community activists and other things. What the level of maturity was in their practice, how long had they been thinking from a network perspective, how engaged would they be in this process, high, medium, and low. And then we put out a set of sort of canned interests, not really knowing what people's areas of interest might be. We gave them an open field for what was a hot topic for them. So we're sort of moving from checklist kind of things, which are easy to work with in a mapping space, to more open, fill in the blank kind of things where people can offer more sort of autonomously what their interests and passion were. And then we gave them a space where they could really stretch out their specific area of focus. One of the things that people said they wanted to do in this group was to give and get help. So we have a section for offers and asks. What kinds of things might you offer to this community? And we then asked, we had an open question there, what else besides the ones that people said they were interested in offering. And then we asked them, what are they interested in getting, in exactly the same list, so we could work with that later. So that's pretty much where we were going there. And I just want to show you that from a relationship perspective, when you go into the, because we're again looking at my profile here, I'm able to click on connections. All the people on the map come up, and you can go into any of them. Here I see that, oops, that Sadia is new to the map for me, and I can mark two things about our relationship. We are collaborators, and I can actually, I'm not going to type in right now why I connect with her, but this is a really interesting piece because it's an open field that allows you to put in a lot about what that relationship means to you. And that actually is a kind of a game changer when you get into this. Okay, so we've got basically the front end of this map, front end of the data collection piece. Let me switch over really quickly to something I just want to show you where we are in the scheme of things. I built this as a learner. I built a visual checklist of tasks as a mapper, and Kara just put that in the chat, and you can look at this and use this, and this is a work in progress. But basically, you're collecting information through sumApp and sending it over to Kumu to visualize. You're sending it through a structured JSON link, and the map itself gets back embedded in sumApp. And then there's a set of tasks that you do as you start to build the map or build the sumApp data collection survey. And there's a set of tasks that you use to build the visualization on the Kumu side. So we just looked at creating the survey, and I was showing you what a member sees after you create the survey and setup. But these are the objects in there: the bio, the profile, connections, and so forth. You end up creating member lists and putting that in there so you can then manage the members through invitations and so forth. And then finally, there's the member usage. Why did I want to show you that? Because I'm switching from the data collection side to the map in a second. I did want to show you that one of the things that you can do in setting up the survey is to create an opt-in form, which we use liberally here. So instead of having the names of people, emails, an email list like you might in some communities. For the Facebook group, we didn't have that. But what we can do is embed this link, which I think Kara just put in there. And you can join this map by just clicking on this link, and you will get an opt-in form where you explicitly give your email and first and last name, and you get the survey and you can start participating. So it sort of takes care of that issue of building a community slowly with an open kind of invite. What we didn't do, and we've done in other kinds of things, is for a particular event, you might create a registration Google form, or not a Google form, but use the sumApp survey as a registration for an event. And so as people register for the event, they are putting information in, and you're building a map immediately. So a couple examples: we've built maps with 300 people in 2 weeks for a registration. And that completely sidesteps the issue of how do you get people to participate in a map. So let's go to the map here for a sec. This is what the map looks like, just as kind of a blob of information. We've got lots of people. We've got about 160 people in this map. And this is great, but it doesn't really help you do anything at this point. So what we have over on this side is a couple of other links. One is, what are the shared interests that people have? And this map clusters around those shared interests that people could specify. And for example, network mapping, we can go ahead and focus on just that. And I'm sorry, these aren't shared interests. These are offers and asks. These are people who are, dotted lines are asking for support around network mapping, and solid lines are people who are offering support around network mapping. You can go in and further break this down and say, well, who are the people that have greater than 10 years of experience in this space? Let's try 3 years. So Christine wanted me to set this map up beforehand, and I'm going to do that. Well, I blew that demo, but you can slice and dice in that regard. This one is the shared interests map, and you can find out through this who your community is. If you're looking for people that are interested in sustainability, you can take that community of 2,000 people. We've got 160 of those people mapping. Here's people who are interested in sustainability, and you can further slice and dice in that way. One other map that we put out was a geographic map, which is somewhat moot at the moment with COVID-19. But you can dig down. Sorry, I'm outing a few of us here today. And you can dig down right down into specific areas. One other link that I put, or view that I put in, was OneIn, which has basically the same ways of breaking the map down as the original map, but it also has a set of metrics here. So I can see there's 162 people on this map, creating 631 connections. Let me go back to this original map for 1 sec, and let me show you something that was just very cool. I'm gonna have to wrap here. Christine did this thing that was jaw-dropping for me. I'm gonna out Christine here. So we're focusing on Christine's personal network within this group. Of course, she's very well connected. But one of the question that we put in there about descriptions, I'm gonna look at just the relationship between her and I. So this question of why you connect is an opportunity. If you start to look at why Christine connects, this is why I connect to Christine. But if you start to look at why Christine connects in this network, you get an incredibly rich picture of a person and how they relate to people in this network. And it's an opportunity also, in this case, to build appreciations between people. It enriches the networks in a huge way. And that for me was a tremendous eye-opener. I really have rambled all over the place here. I think I've got a minute or two more, but we wanted to open it for questions. Have I got a minute or two more? Christine or Kara?
You're fine,
Yes.
keep going.
Keep going.
All right. Let me walk through this. So again, I use this to sort this out, and it is a way to see the tasks that are required to sort of work through it. It seems intimidating, but there's one thing that you can do in any of these maps. Any map that you like, you can hit T and see the code for that map. This is particularly complicated. Tim Hansen built this code. And I'm not going to say anything more about it, but you can look at any map and simpler maps and take this code and just copy it and put it in your own map. And you will start to have something to work from, and you can tweak that little by little. And there's a whole community of people that in Kumu and also in sumApp that can help with code building. I'm not going to say anything more about that. In terms of map using, I wanted to say that there's a set of videos that I ended up creating all the way from how to help people opt in to navigating, why you would map and so forth, and examples of how you use the map. I'm not sure it's been super successful in terms of engaging people, but I really feel something like that is necessary to help people use the maps that you use or that you create. And I think Kara can put that into the chat. And no, that was it actually. Boy, there's a lot of things that we've learned about this. That let me finish with this. So the technical piece ends up engage. You know, if you are doing the technical piece yourself, there's a lot to learn there. But you can, with a small amount of technical expertise, you can go a long ways with simple maps. Visioning is really about the level of excitement that you bring and the ability to articulate the value propositions of the map to the people. And the sense-making piece is really kind of an art with engaging people and bringing them into the map and them starting to make sense of it. And I have to say that at this point, this map is not a failure, but we are failing. So yes, we have a lot of people engaged in this map, but we have not created, and I say we, I took on responsibility of engaging people around this map, and I have not done that piece of work. One last thing, it's very difficult to engage a group that doesn't have a very strongly articulated purpose. To the extent that a community is intentional, is the extent to which people will say, why is this map useful to me? How can we use it? And this is a community of interest, this network weaving group, not a community of practice per se. So those are caveats, and I am learning, and I am going to go back at this map and re-engage people around building it into something that does have more purpose. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Jim. That's great. So we'll just open it up now. And what questions, and welcome, Mario. Thanks for joining us. Just questions or comments, observations anyone has? Let's just sort of take a figurative talking stick and go around and ask and share the floor. Gladys.
I do have this thought about the engaging part that is definitely not addressing that full issue, but I have this feeling that this is part of the thing that I see that excites me about the maps. That there's so few ways that we have to really understand how all this, what the dynamics are of the systems around us. And it's such a good tool for that in so many potential ways. But I think that there's not really a lot of way for people to understand what it is until they really, 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 really need it. And what I'm seeing is that building it as part of the infrastructure gives you something that at the moment, and you know, this is just such a fraught moment right now, that and Jim, working with race issues like you are, you know, just kind of being in a position where you have this tool at the ready. This is in your pocket and ready to use when you need to make those points. And that, you know, it's there, you know, and to me, that is just a really powerful tool that was not there before. And I just really, you know, I'm really grateful that you put yourself in that position.
Thanks. You know, I actually, the work I do with Showing Up for Racial Justice is in the political education area. And so we do study and action kind of things, and people build relationships, incredibly tight relationships as they go through that anti-racist journey personally, all that transformation. And I'm going to introduce mapping to them because one of the things that you get right from the get-go, and that's exciting, is in a community of people that you're loosely connected, you don't have the contact information, you don't have the detailed information about how to get a hold of people. So using it as a visual directory just to see the human capital is really important. But the relationship piece, especially in a larger group, how are people connected? And if you really think the reason why a community can do something is based on the relationships they have with each other, not seeing those relationships, not having a view of it it's blindsiding. And so the ability to go like, these people need to be connected with these people. You want to weave those people together. You can see that on the map, and you can start to create activities that pull people together.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So so there's a question in the chat from Ben about the difference between the different tools such as Weaver, Mighty Networks, Kumu, and I was thinking both Katie and Jim have done a lot of work and I think you've both been introduced to most of those. I was wondering if either or both of you would like to comment on the tool comparisons.
Go ahead, Katie.
Well, yeah, I haven't gone thoroughly into a lot of different, I mean, I've kind of scanned them and surveyed them, and I feel like sumApp for the kind of participatory network mapping that I like to do, the sumApp Kumu combo is really best, and it was fun to work with.
Yeah, I used like 3 or 4 different mapping tools. They were all very hard to get into, and none of them were bottom up like this. Christine created and Tim created sumApp really from a participatory perspective, as did the Kumu folks. And there's still thresholds, hurdles to get over, not so much on the sumApp side, but on the Kumu side. And Christine and Tim have provided several sort of templates and ways to get started. But I think it's huge to not have to manage, to have the thinking about managing the interactions between people, between the users and the mappers to streamline as sumApp does. So.
Caitlin.
Yeah, thank you for presenting, Jim, and thank you for creating this space for us to get into sumApp. I really appreciate it. My question is, so I'm at the beginning of starting to engage some folks or helping some folks develop network maps, and I understand that network maps are emergent in nature, and sometimes the purpose becomes clear as we create them. And so my question is, how do you, as a map initiator, how would I, like, I feel I need enough to provide enough purpose or to co-create that sense of purpose with like the design team, I'll call it, that's initiating the map, but then like, yeah, balancing that with emergence, and like maybe any tips on, I mean, my understanding is like what you shared, so it's like we can start to see the relationships, but I also am sort of encountering like, yeah, just, you know, people are hesitant to engage in a whole new software and a whole new process, and so it's like, how do you kind of bait it enough and have a real sense of purpose and also stay with the emergence?
that iterative process of baiting, pulling in, baiting, bigger and bigger fish, I think is really important. And I think that, you know, out of the box, sumApp gives you like just a basic survey. So it's easy to tweak that. So if you've got 3 or 4 people that have some burning interests that somehow have seen that vision, immediately you can work with those 3 or 4 people and that basic map and build something very simple that you can put out and just see who takes the bait. You can also, in your community, you know who the influential people are just from the gut feel of how you see them interacting somehow. To work with those people specifically and say, here's the vision that we have. And the we is important, even if it's a small group, I think. Here's the vision that we have, and spark them. And I think there's some easy sparks there if you get people enough attention. So if you have 10 influential people and 3 of them are sparked, and there's 3 of you that are core, now there's 6 of you, and those people can go and proselytize or fish when they get on the map. So, but it's a matter, it really is a matter of working the people, and it's relationship building around the map as well.
Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a question. I noticed in the code, by the way, I love the map. It's great, and I'd love to get it on it. That there were, at the top it was import, files were imported. So is that instead of having a live JSON link? And why did you do it that way?
What are you talking about?
Sorry, in the code in Kumu, at the very top,
okay.
entries that said at import, and then with the connections and files. I don't remember exactly. But.
Oh,
yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that Tim does is he modularizes the code so that there isn't too much junk in the actual there's a lot here, but basically what he's got is inherit a bunch of characteristics about how the elements are going to appear, and he writes that as a piece of code that you just import each time. So inherit the base elements.
Oh, so you can import from one view to another?
Yes.
Oh.
And so yeah, go ahead, Christine.
What you're doing is you're inheriting the code from when you import it, you're inheriting the code. So for instance, if you know that you always want a certain kind of node to be a certain color, just put it in a view that just defines the color and the, you know, whatever of certain elements, if they're always going to be the same. And then you just have to inherit it. So because, for instance, Tim makes a lot of maps, and he does his best to match our clients' color schemes, but, you know, like their logo, etc. But they might not like the color, and he doesn't want to go through 10 different views and change the color for every connection. He can just change like the width or the color for the connections in the connection inheriting view, and then they're changed in all the views that inherit it. Did that make sense?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I didn't know I could do that.
Yeah, it's cool. So it's like ways of getting efficient after you've learned how to do it, how to make it quicker and easier and more malleable without being so bothersome. Jim, sorry I cut you off.
No.
On that. Other questions or Katie, I was also curious if you had anything to add to Caitlin's question, because I know you've also been dealing with that in a few different contexts with that tension between emergence and.
Yeah, for sure. I added a couple thoughts in the chat, which are, you know, just doing a quick 1 minute or 2 minute video. And I like to embed a little video in the map overview of just to help orient people, which is a little bit of a different purpose, but just short videos to, you know, build excitement. I also do like a 1-pager of why join the map that gives a list of the kinds of questions that the map can answer for people. And then, yeah, always having like a feedback way for people to share in what they want out of it is helpful too. But then, you know, like the map is a tool for network weaving in these bigger ways. So what are the forums that you have in place Like, are there regular calls or meetings? And then how do you, maybe take a few minutes in each of those meetings to have the map, like to use the map or employ the map to the meeting's ends, and then kind of really keeping it alive in the people's minds, and seems helpful too.
Where have you had the most success in doing that? What kind of a community? How purposeful were they?
Well, I'm working with the One Community right now, which is a global network, and it's just being built. But the form, the survey in sumApp is serving as the membership mechanism for people to join. So in the survey, they have the different membership categories. And there's a bit more, it's not just a survey, so there's some more information giving in that form. But then the survey is designed in a way that relates to the kind of activities that the network does. So they do different kinds of monthly calls. And so then we kind of designed the survey and the map to say how could this best feed into that. So we kind of ask questions like, what's a leading edge for you? And then the network organizer kind of goes through that and then crafts calls or crafts a workshop or sharing session based on that, and then invites the people who would express interest, or invites everybody, but can do specific outreach to folks that have indicated related theme as an interest. So really weaving the design of the survey and the map into the fabric of the network activities is, again, it's just in process, but I'm pretty excited about how that's shaping up.
I'm pretty excited that you're doing it.
Yeah. What are you using for feedback? Like in this map, there's a feedback question in the survey that just says, grateful for any thoughts you have that would make this map more powerful for our community. Thank you, Christine. Where are you collecting the feedback? In the map?
In the survey, and then at the end of the map overview is a link with an email, for email us with feedback or input.
I like the idea of using the map launching pad itself as a way to get more information and to keep coming back to the map. That's great. Also this whole idea, I mean, you spend a bunch of energy.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
We've got somebody else who's got some burning questions, and I want us to get to those too, and hopefully that'll come back to what you're talking about. So Mario, do you want to just say out loud what you're putting in the chat?
Okay. Like the previous speaker, sorry, I just joined. I'm also sticking my head out, and there's a community in South Africa that they hold seminars. So I'm still on my COVID-19 track. I'm slowly proceeding. So this is the 5th seminar of the scientists who actually do the epidemiological mapping. And so there's GIS people, there's health people, and then there's modelers, and they have a weekly seminar, and I'm gonna, the guy that's organizing is desperate for talks. And so this Wednesday, and on the Slack channel, I'll actually attach the seminar PDF file. So under COVID-19 on the Slack channel, you'll find the invite. And what I'm thinking about is there are a closed community at the moment. And so it's kind of the stats people, and they only invite certain people. And I was thinking of saying to them, okay, so you're producing very important inputs to other people that have to interpret it. So I was thinking of how do I discuss about sort of different kinds of communities, ask them to which communities do you belong? And so we get sort of the technical communities, and then ask them, so how does your information get used? And so how do you think about the packaging of your results for different audiences? So it's kind of creating this, that they're aware they're part of a bigger system, and they know that. So I'd like to represent the kind of the bigger system as well, to give a context for this community of experts. So I'm kind of playing with ideas of, they're like a community of practice, And then you've got communities of interest that would be interested in kind of seeing their work and knowing who's doing the hard graft behind the scenes, and also being able to ask them questions, be people interested in the technical side. But I'm open for suggestions, because this is totally a new field for me, because it's really, there's a lot of anti-science movements around and people get false news. So with my COVID side, I'm trying to trace the source of the information so people can see where things are coming from. But I would like to hear what people think about what would open up the interaction to more people, and also to make this community of hardcore scientists think about how the results are getting used. So I know that's a fuzzy question.
Yeah. Does anyone have thoughts or?
I have a quick thought.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about your second piece of it about sourcing information and stuff like that, but if you wanted to articulate for all those people in that community, the various communities they're in, sumApp has got a new feature that not only maps people, but also can map organizations or those communities. So if you're trying to show a network of networks, you can do that at the organizational level, and then you can show the participants' membership in each of those organizations. I don't know if that's exactly where you're going, but it would really show them in an embedded space. Christine's got that thinking look.
I was thinking of the sort of the government decision-making organizations. So it's kind of the people, there's obviously kind of a high-level council, but then also people that look after old age homes, so you have to make certain decisions based on where you are, in which area, and how prevalent COVID is, and what is the mechanism of infection. So you've got different people that are dealing with different issues. And so that's why I like your suggestion. It might be NGOs, that are actually dealing with handing out food packets. And they have to know about, okay, so we're going to this area, it's a hotspot at the moment, so be extra careful. So there's a whole bunch of people involved in the care that happens around COVID,
I think you're mapping out a very complex space, which is probably bigger than the container that we've got in this meeting right here.
Yeah, that's
I
think that's true, Jim. So Mario, I'm going to invite you to either stick around afterwards and let's see if there are others who have, like just see if we have space to talk about it. Yeah, because it sounds like a really complex project that, but the first suggestion I would say is, if you are sure you want to use sumApp for that, is to just dive in and start playing with it, because the more complex the area that you're trying to address, the harder it is for anybody to have a really useful conversation without you actually getting some hands-on experience, so that you can narrow your questions down to actual tactics. Because it's very big, and part of the whole point of sumApp is to help us start where we can with the little bitty pieces that we can start with, and then build and learn and build and learn. And so what I experience all the time is when somebody starts with this great big huge philosophical grand theoretical bunch of constructs, I can't really help until they put their hands on the tools and on the data and actually start figuring it out. So I would say do that, and then we'll talk some more, because it can be very abstract, and it always boils down to for me, I'm working with a client and they say, I want to shift the universe around in this way. I have to say, okay, who are we going to ask? How are we going to ask them? Do you already know them? Do you not already know them? How many are there? I have to ask these very, very simple little questions. We'll start doing that.
I like that advice, because I was thinking as you're speaking that maybe I should just ask the participants if they can identify whether an institution like university has got close links with community care, and so that they can say, look, our institution is involved in this community, and so I'm actually know people who help, and so that becomes a more personal tie. So this person at my institution is involved with the community. I get you. I was just thinking of, make it more concrete. Thank you.
And and the thing is, it gets down to that very basic level of
Yeah.
whose
Yeah.
perspective are we talking about? Like, are we talking
Mm.
about me knowing these people's connections? Are we talking?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
until we
Yeah.
actually grapple with that level of
Yeah.
both
Yeah.
individuals' relationships to whatever and
Mm.
the
Mm.
angles they're looking at it from, we
Yeah.
won't talk
Yeah.
about it in circles, and we won't come
Yeah.
together.
Got it. I
Yeah.
got it. No, I like following the human trail.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Okay. Thank you.
So we've got one more minute. Does anybody have one last quick comment or question they want to throw out? Observation?
Can I just take a second and tail on what's just happened there about tracking individuals versus tracking individuals who are in organizations, which may also be connected? How easy is that to do within sumApp? Make a network of
Well, we designed, so if you have a tier 4 account and have 2 projects, you can be making a network, essentially making a network map of organizations and a network map of people, and then link them, and then you'll have an extra connection question that asks the relationships of the persons to the organizations. So, because you need a different survey for orgs, you need a different than in people, they have different dimensions that you're going to be tracking. Right. And then the kinds of like people have a different set of kinds of relationships to one another than they do to an organization, and organizations have. So it's just a matter of, you know, if your budget will allow you to have that degree of sumApp. And but once you know, might take a little bit of wrapping your head around what's going on in these different places, and then how does all that get mapped. But in terms of gathering the data, it's designed to be like as easy. I mean, it's not that hard. It's doable. Yeah. So we're at the top of the hour, and what I'd like to do is just have us all unmute and just have a collective appreciation, thank you, close, or goodbye. So whatever feels appropriate for you to say, we'll count down to 3, and then we'll all say it together, and then everybody is welcome to jump off or stick around, and we'll wait and see who's still here after the jumping off. So 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Terrific,
Christine.
Master Mappers.
Jim.
Really appreciate it.
So much.
Really great.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.